So let's get into today's session. And today is part one of a two-part series we're doing about domestic abuse. And perhaps first, it's important that I set the scene. So 1 in every 6 calls for service to the police relate to incidents of domestic abuse. Often the first call for service is very much the tip of the iceberg for a victim of domestic abuse who's been experiencing multiple instances of abuse before they've had the courage and strength to make that first report. The policing response has to be effective and efficient. Efficiency means dealing with the matter at the earliest possible opportunity with the right resource. Effectiveness means getting the best outcome that's right for society, meeting the expectation of the victim. Often there is no immediate threat to life on these calls, but the service has been poorly serviced due to demand on policing resources. Through the work of the Police Digital Service Business Engagement Team, we regularly identify opportunities for other forces to learn from best practice or innovation that the team are able to identify by working closely with our colleagues in force. And this is where this webinar comes in, and it's our opportunity to bring in the learning from Leicestershire Police. They will take us through the approach they've taken to non-emergency calls for service around domestic abuse. Today, we're going to really focus on how they've been engaging remotely with victims in an empathetic and efficient manner. So let's get started, and I'm going to introduce Mark King from Leicestershire Police, who's going to be taking us through most of the thing. He's got his colleague Craig, who will join us as and when we go through this. So let's start it off with Mark. Could you please first explain your role, and then what is it, the need for change around this approach in Leicestershire, and what have you been doing about non-emergency calls around domestic abuse and how you've been dealing with them?
Hello there, good afternoon. My name's Mark King. I am the inspector with Leicestershire in our domestic abuse resolution team, or DART as we abbreviate it. My role in this team and the reason for the team is because, as we said, there was just so many delays in attending incidents. The team was set up so we could address those video calls, deal with video calls and engage with victims very early on, ideally within sort of 48 hours of being identified of the call. Also, what we found out was that identified is that obviously the longer we took to engage with victims, the more they withdrew from speaking with us, and then when we did speak with them, they weren't interested because of the poor service that we had given them. So we've increased the victim satisfaction by doing those video calls. The other thing we had was just an unassessed domestic abuse risk. So we didn't know what we'd got because it took so long for us to go to speak with the victims and identify that risk through our domestic abuse risk assessments.
So let's unpick that a little bit more. So you've used some digital tools to address the problem, and building on some academic work from Oxford University in conjunction with Thames Valley Police, TVP, you've developed it from there. So can you tell me an overview, what tools you've deployed and what does the workflow look like?
Yeah, so have you got slide 1 up?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. So we decided to move to digital appointments. So instead of travelling out to the victims, we dealt with incidents via video appointments, so we could actually speak with them via a video appointments secure system to speak with the victims. We also contacted the victim beforehand and had a booking process in place, so we have a calendar, so we've always got that appointment ready for that victim, so they know when an officer is going to call. And then not only that, once we'd finished with that call, spoken to the victim, we send them a survey to fill out to ask for some feedback. And then we look at that where we are. Recently, we ran this for 1 year, and we're looking at what savings we've achieved, the victim satisfaction that we've had for those.
So what's the experience like for the actual victim?
The victim satisfaction, I mean, the overall victim satisfaction has extremely been pleasing and promising. They feel far more comfortable sitting in their own, whether it's their own home or in friends' home, with their phones or computers, laptops, speaking with officers. It is face-to-face, it is digital. They seem to be far more comfortable speaking with us that way. They just seemed a lot more relaxed, and they're able to open up and engage with us a lot more through this service.
So you've outlined a very smooth digital service for the victims, and we know that sometimes the digital experience can feel a little bit cold and clinical. So what considerations have you put in place to make the victim feel valued, and what happens when you realise an escalation is needed?
We will always give the victim. We will book that appointment, and we give that victim a pre-call just to check that they're okay to take that call. So that way, if there's any childcare issues, they can get them potentially sorted out. They might be able to want to get themselves into a quiet room, a quiet location, where they can talk to us. Very occasionally, people will cancel the call there because it might not be convenient to them. But yeah, we will put them in a place where obviously they are safe and secure. In relation to that. So yeah, so it works really well that way.
And of course, this is about putting the victims first and the satisfaction that they generate. So you seem to put quite a bit of research and thought into making the victim feel safe and valuable. But sometimes the challenge with domestic abuse offences is that we need to take action against the victim's wishes, particularly to safeguard them or their children. So how have you measured the effectiveness of this approach?
Our aim was to look at 80% of victim satisfaction, so we could actually resolve 80% of the calls with that one phone call. So we're not repeatedly going back to the victims. That way, our staff are trained in a way that we can put all that safeguarding around the victims, whether we want to put in some non-molestation orders for those victims, safeguarding measures, Clare's laws applications in relation to the perpetrator. We can put all that in for that victim, and we use we have a number of officers that remain within the team, and we train them up, and they've learned a huge amount around safeguarding our victims and what we can put in place for them.
And just picking up on that point about the teams, when we met to discuss this webinar, you spoke about how you rotate people through this function, and that's helping to upskill people. Could you explain a little bit more about who makes up the team who deal with this?
So at the moment, we obviously balanced the amount of offences that we could, incidents that were reported that we could pick up and try and resolve in one go. So we measured that across the year, across the force, and we've split that into 3 teams with 3 sergeants. On each team, we have 2 permanent members, and then at the moment we've got 9 policing areas. So we have 1 person for 6 months from each policing area. So that's 3 people on each team. They have 6 months rotation. And from that, they just learn a lot more, and they have got the time to deal with the victims, learn all about the safeguarding measures in place, and then we put them back out on area as almost DART champions to show the good work. And ultimately, 1 police officer within the DART team will deal with more domestic incidents than they would if they were on area. Currently, I think we've got 16 officers doing the work of 21.
That's fantastic. So just thinking about the victim again, and what happens if the victim is in a situation where perhaps they've started the call, but say the partner's come back, or they suddenly need to change? How have you managed that experience so that you're avoiding any potential risks and reducing the threat and harm to the victim?
So the system we use is completely anonymous, so there's nothing related to the police at all. So if they just end that call and say the perpetrator did take the device off them, there would be absolutely nothing in their history that would identify that they've spoken to the police. We send them a text message, again to identify the link to the video call, but again that is completely anonymized. You would not know that is police related, so that way it's should anybody return, or should the victim suddenly become feel not safe, they can just end that call straight away, and there's no police footprint at all on that.
And obviously, sometimes it's a lot easier for the victim to make this arrangements to have this video call type approach than to have a marked police car and a uniformed police officer coming to the house. What sort of feedback have you had from victims over when they realise this offer is available to them over perhaps the traditional approach that some people might expect?
I think, I mean, if we can move to slide 4, there's some of the comments that we've had there, and also slide 3 will give us this sort of the victim satisfaction. As I say, it's quite anonymised because I say we're not turning up at the addresses, and it's quite a new approach. dealing with victims this way by video call, but as I say, we can do the statements as well. We can get them electronically signed. It's just a far more relaxed process. Our officers sit in a small sort of quiet booths, so there's no distraction from that side at all, and they just are relaxed and feel really supported with that one-to-one call with that officer. And we only book 2 appointments a day, so the officers have got plenty of time to research and spend time with that victim, fill out those dash questionnaires and reassure them.
Mark, these satisfaction levels are fairly incredible for a very stressful type of incident that has huge impact, particularly when, you know, many of us have worked in policing a long time. We all know that first disclosure is certainly not the first incident in the vast majority of cases. And thinking especially in type of the investigations that you're undertaking, how more efficient do you think Leicestershire Police are becoming on a daily basis towards the incidence of DA?
I think probably a lot more efficient. So we triage the incidents that come in. Our incident desk, so the ones that take the 101 call, the teams that take them, they will contact us to ask us to review incidents to see if they are suitable for this video service, and we put training out into the call centres for those. I think we're getting a lot better with what we can identify. And as I say, we are the service that we've offered. I think we wanted to try and book in within slide 2. We wanted to try and book best case scenario was 3,500 incidents a year. We managed to book just 3,844 incidents. So that's almost 10% more than we actually expected to achieve. So yeah, we've taken quite a significant amount of work from frontline police officers and dealt with it, as I say, almost within that 48-hour time frame that we set ourselves.
And I think, you know, in terms of the efficiency, it's great. You've got 98% of the appointments are being filled. But I think most important of all is that the safeguarding actions that are being taken is the key result here, isn't it? And, you know, just what sort of safeguarding actions do your team do on a regular basis? I know we've covered a couple of them already, but
yeah,
what are the range of skills and tools that you have available to them?
So if we move down to sort of jump around a bit, and I apologise for that, for slide 7,
Yeah.
you can see all the well, that's just a number of the people that we refer to, that we can refer to. And again, we've just massively upskilled our staff and officers to identify all those safeguarding measures. They have their own workbook with all these services identified, and again, we can just sit down and talk with the victim. We can go through whether they want a non-molestation order around that, and explain all that, explain what Clare's Law is, put all that victim support in. There are occasions that we've had people on that have reported this, as I say, we can do this anywhere in the world, and we've had those non-molestations in place before they've come back from holiday.
And perhaps that's worth a quick reference. You know, your victims are the crime might have happened in Leicestershire, but you've had instances where the victim has escaped the abuse and travelled, but you've been able to take action whilst they're away. Can you explain a little bit more?
So we will take a video appointment call with them, and as long as they've got access to sort of Wi-Fi, we can call them anywhere in the world. So as the example I gave, we have people on holiday, or people are travelling, or they've had domestic incidents while they've been on holiday, and they've reported to the police. Because we're their local police, we can talk to them and make that appointment and effectively talk to them anywhere in the world. And that map is just some of the examples where we have spoken with victims, and to say we can safeguard them before they come home.
And I think that's one of the most important things, isn't it? Sometimes when victims of domestic abuse make a change, that provides them with such an opportunity, doesn't it? And this service gives us another opportunity to safeguard people like we've not done before. Just going to about the risk assessment. Obviously, the timeliness of the resolution is under the new process is a huge benefit. But what other benefits are you getting? And certainly, you must be getting much better data.
Yes, we are obviously we're getting a lot more information from victims. We're able to understand how many what's the word I'm looking for? How many non-molestation orders we put out. We can put incidents. So if we get repeat incidents, we can understand where we are with repeat incidents. We can understand where domestic abuse is being committed across all our regional MPAs and where that support needs to go.
And that's what we're going to be picking up in next week's webinar a little bit more, isn't it? We're going to go into some of the detail about the tools and the data and how you're using that proactively a little bit more. So if people can join us in next week's webinar or replay the following webinar, if you're watching this on replay, that'll be available. Craig, obviously you've been a key part of setting this up. What drove you to look at this approach and what sort of things did you have to discuss with the senior officers about taking this approach forward?
Well, so in Leicestershire, we our vision was to increase performance around medium risk domestic abuse, and when we spoke to our colleagues on our frontline officers or MPA officers who respond to the 999 and 101 calls, what they reported back was that sometimes they struggle to see kind of the wood for the trees, if you like. There's a lot of domestic incidents that are reported to us. And so it shifted our focus at that point around dealing with domestic abuse more efficiently at the first point of contact, so that we could then drive and increase performance around medium risk domestic abuse further on down the line. So it was kind of a by proxy approach, if you like, that we took, and that was the briefing that we gave to the senior officers at the time.
And I'm just going to pop up on screen some of the feedback from the victim survey. And Mark, you know, how does this make you and the team feel when you start seeing this sort of response? Because obviously we all have a lot of experience of dealing with it on the front line. What does this sort of feedback mean, and how is it helping you to progress things further?
I think the volume of domestic incidents that we get reported, the officers feel that they just have the time to speak with the victims and they can genuinely engage with them. And when they give us the updates, they can have really good conversations with them. And quite often, other incidents, other offences will be identified because the victim feels comfortable speaking with us for it. So yeah, even people on the attachments, if I can say it, that perhaps weren't keen to come straight away, literally within a matter of days, they're kind of go, I can do so much with the victim, I can support them so much, I have time to listen to them and to be able to engage and put all these safeguarding measures in place that they didn't even realise existed. So yeah, the team are really positive, and those that go back to area, as I say, we try and use them as champions to support that.
Now, we haven't had any particular questions come in live, but if colleagues who are watching live would like to put any questions into the team, please do. If you're interested in knowing more about this, please contact your business engagement manager within the Police Digital Service, who will be only too happy to help signpost, because one of the things we're very conscious of when colleagues come on from forces to help us to share this sort of knowledge, we don't want them to be bombarded by 42 different force colleagues all asking the same sort of questions. That's where we can come in, and on screen now is the map of the business engagement managers. Just while you're popping any questions in, I just thought it'd be worth highlighting that next week we're going to be really looking at what's next once you start getting cleaner, better data, more able to time and focus it. So I think we've got a really interesting session next week where we're able to approach problem solving. What sort of things should colleagues be joining us for next week, Mark?
Yeah, so next week we will be showing what we call our threat assessment app. So the other side of the DART team is our threat assessment unit. So that's looking at all the information we get from our dash questions, all the domestic abuse incidents that we can see in one app, that we'll be able to see escalation much quicker. We'll be able to assess threat much easier. Then we can address that by problem management plans.
That's brilliant.
And identify those clusters of risk.
Brilliant, and we'll go into some real detail on how that happens and the sort of information we get next week. So we've got quite a lot happening over the next few months in terms of our webinars and events. So just to take you through those, obviously that's what we've got on screen at the moment. Then we're going to be doing a little bit of a focus to coincide with Cyber Awareness Month during October. One of the things that, for those of you who joined us at the Police Digital Summit a couple of weeks ago, you will have heard the Policing Minister talking about redaction and robotic process. So we've got a webinar on that on the 25th of October, and a few other webinars there planned. Just do head over to the PDS events page to be able to get the detail of what's coming up very soon. Also, we've got some workshops that we really want to highlight, and this is one that we're getting a lot of registrations for at the moment, and are really keen that as many of you are able to join us as possible. This is an event at Staffordshire Police headquarters who are hosting us, and this one's going to be focused on neighbourhood policing technical solutions, and perhaps something in an area where we perhaps don't think how technology can help in that area too often, but we've found some fantastic examples and case studies on how, you know, Microsoft 365 in particular is enabling better policing at front line, to enabling officers to free up and focus on what matters. If you head over to the PDS website, you'll be able to register for that. And we are just in the throes of planning our next Innovation Today event to take place in January. And again, the details are on the PDS website, and we're particularly interested in hearing from forces who've got solutions they've worked on in partnership with their colleagues in the sector. And Mike Cowley-Freeman, our L&D specialist, is also running events for February and with the College of Policing. Some details on there. And again, please reach out to your business engagement or use the Force Collaboration channel if you want to know anything more about it. I don't think any questions have popped in to us, so I'm going to thank Craig and Mark for joining us today. It's fantastic to share this knowledge with colleagues. Do please get in touch if you've got any more to ask about this, and we'll look forward to joining you on our next webinar.